we go. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I am the author of the FCPA Compliance and Ethics blog, Lessons Learned on Compliance and Ethics, Best Practices under the FCPA, and the recent ebook, GSK in China. And this is episode 3 of my podcast, the FCPA Compliance and Ethics Report. Today it is my distinct pleasure to have Roy Snell, the president of the SCCE, as my guest. The SCCE is having its annual conference next month in Washington, D.C., and so Roy's been gracious enough to come on board. He's going to tell us a little bit about himself, the SCCE, and the upcoming conference. I'm sure at the end he'll tell you how to register, and I would tell you that it is one of the best annual conferences for my money in the compliance world. It has a great array of nuts and bolts practitioners, of thought leaders, and people from outside the industry who come in and give different perspectives on compliance and ethics. But two things in my mind make it really stand out. The first is the price, and I have to talk about this. It is the best value of any conference, and frankly, it's the least expensive. So kudos for having the least expensive and one of the best. The second thing is, and I'm not quite sure how you guys came up with this, is your, whatever you call your vendor room, your product service room, the people who help sponsor and a part of the SCCE who deliver products and services have had their own room, and it is a great resource for people like me who want to walk through, learn about products and services. You have people there obviously who are willing to talk to you about it. It's a huge room. It's very well run, lots of food and drink, and really just a lot of fun to walk up and down the aisle. So that's another unique factor in addition to your low price. So with that, Roy, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you found the SCCE, and we'll go from there.
Sure. I was a compliance officer at the University of Wisconsin, and met via the phone an individual who was in compliance. It was the first person I'd met in the field. This was about 16, 17 years ago. And we had such a robust networking experience, the two of us decided to try and get as many compliance officers as we could find together in Minneapolis. We held a meeting. We invited about 30 people, 60 people showed up. And at the end of that day, I told the group I thought that this was so valuable, the networking, that we should start a professional association. At first it was in healthcare focus, and then in 2005 we broadened it to all industries. Somewhere in the middle I went from a volunteer to we got big enough that we needed a CEO, and they asked me to do it about 12 years ago, and I've been involved in that position ever since. And now we have about 12,000 members, and we have about 12-15% of our membership from outside the U.S. It's been a very interesting run.
Well, I would say the resources that you guys provide are really first rate, and the thing that drew me and attracts me is, and I have to talk about it again, one is your annual membership fee, which is one of the least expensive and makes it very cost effective for really anyone up and down the chain to join. But you seem to focus on the nuts and bolts of compliance. How do you actually get in and do compliance? What are the tools that the compliance practitioner needs? And you guys have provided that. The compliance manual you have is something that I refer to quite often. It's written by some really top-notch compliance practitioners, and once again, it's a great resource. So could you tell us about some of the resources you guys have on the site?
Yes, a couple of the things with the manual and some books. We're now starting to do what we're referring to as SCCE TV. We've done a few of them, basically interviews with people. We're going to be doing some more at the annual meeting. We have about 3,000 documents that people have donated, forms, policies, procedures, memos, risk assessments, compliance plans, important government documents that are publicly available. And we have tried very hard to provide as much content as we can, both at our conferences, in our magazine, the website, and the social media has been a real big thing for us. Um, I want to get at this idea, though, of the nuts and bolts. You mentioned it a couple of times. From the very beginning, we tried very hard to focus the organization on the idea that we are going to go after the people in the trenches, have hands-on experience in various areas of compliance, and then affiliated areas, as you mentioned, outside the field, audit, risk, legal, etc. Rather than going after people just because of the big name or a big company or a long resume, we're up to about 70 compliance and ethics conferences a year now, and we've been doing this for about 16 years. I think we have a pretty good feel for the people who actually have hands-on, practical, common sense experience, and we focus on them. I think all too often professional associations succumb to uh, trying to get brand names or big names or looking at long resumes as opposed to the people who actually have the practical experience. I appreciate you mentioning it. I think it's very important to us, the folks on our board, and the people who speak, the people who write the columns, the people we seek out for those things are very practical and have a lot of common sense.
And let me just say that I started in this field on my solo practice in 2010, and your staff was very receptive to taking articles or other publications or works for myself. And so what that told me was that if you have a quality product, you guys would be allowed, or a person like myself could submit it, and then it would be published. So it's a great way for people to get information about themselves if it's quality out through the magazine, through the social media you use, and the other mechanisms as well.
You know, one of the other things that happens sometimes in associations is they'll try to focus on a single group of a type of job position. We have certainly the focus is implementing compliance programs and helping compliance professionals, but we've embraced the ancillary professions to a great degree: risk, audit, legal, HR, communications. And again, you mentioned that earlier. When we're sitting around the lunch table at the annual meeting and one of our compliance folks says something that doesn't fly with an auditor, for example, they're sitting in the room and can explain to the compliance professional why what they expect or think or want to do, why it isn't practical or the best approach. I think sometimes we have professional associations will get a bunch of people in a room, start drinking a lot of Kool-Aid and not question themselves. We try and do that a lot, so we welcome everybody. A good example of that is our annual meeting. We probably have 25 to 30% of the speakers are not even members of our organization. We try not to categorize people as we just try not to categorize people. We try and get everybody in the room that can help everyone with what the annual meeting is all about, is professional education and networking. And we have a very diverse group. And as you mentioned, we welcome articles from all folks in all venues. Anybody who can help someone in our profession, we're embracing them and frankly appreciate greatly the contribution of folks like yourself to the knowledge and the content.
Let me ask you, you brought up one area that I had wanted to ask you about, which is you've combined a lot of different disciplines of compliance. So, for instance, I practice in the anti-corruption and anti-bribery space, but the SEC is much broader than that, and you bring compliance professionals together from these various disciplines. So, for instance, in Houston annually, we have the Energy and Utilities Conference. And I will tell you that I never went to a utility session, thought they had nothing to do with me. And then one day at lunch, I sat between two utility guys, and they opened my eyes to an entire new way of thinking about compliance with some specific techniques that they did. Can you talk about how that sort of cross fertilization works, in addition to kind of an HR, audit, lawyer perspective, and how the different industries
Right.
do compliance?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and it's particularly important to us because we spent a great deal of our time in the early days with a single industry, and once we started having the annual meetings welcoming all industries, uh, it was obvious right away how rewarding the opportunity was to hang out with folks in other industries. And I think one of the reasons why is that every industry has a different set of specific regulations specific to them. Some have more, some have less, and because the risk areas differ so much, they might emphasize different areas of a compliance program. To some, the hotline might be more interesting or challenging, certainly the folks that are international. To others, audit and monitoring might be an area that their industry has focused on more than others. And so bringing them all together and learning from each other has been helpful because different industries have different expertise and different areas of focus in compliance. One other thing related to that, we'll have about 100 and I'm guessing 25. A few weeks ago we had 120. We'll probably get 125, 130 different people at the annual meeting from outside the United States, and this is actually some of those are folks who are speaking. Um, and they're from, I believe it's 36 different countries. And the same thing happens there, is that we will find that certain countries have had spent a great deal of time in one area of compliance. They're a little further along than the rest of us, and they'll share a perspective that helps everybody do a better job. Tom, it all kind of ties into this idea that we really want to welcome everybody and include everyone. It's interesting. The folks that do what you do and all of the attendees work every day with very a varied number of people. They work with people in different departments of their organization. They work with outside consultants and attorneys. They work with vendors. Um, and if all these people are together as we're trying to improve the state of compliance in this country, it's just logical that they're going to go back to their office and be more effective in their job, as opposed to of just hanging out with people who are just like them. It's been a great experience.
Uh, I'd now like to turn to the 2013 annual conference, and if you could tell us about some of the keynote speakers you've brought in and some of the things that are going to make this conference unique and one of your best.
Well, first of all, and I appreciate the comment on the price too. We work very hard to try to do what we can do for the profession, and still make things affordable. And it also allows us to get a greater number of people at the event. And frankly, you mentioned the vendors also. I think we have about 39 vendors coming. We actually try to make it very inexpensive on them. Frankly, the number one reason is some associations take too much money from the vendors and then they become obliged to focus on them as opposed to what the mission statement is. We love the vendors. We try and make it inexpensive, not only to make sure that our focus stays on the mission, but also to get as many of them as we can in the room, because they're providing solutions to folks who have some challenges. And I appreciate your observations. You're very observant attendee of these things, because the vendor area is very important to us. Not just to see the vendors and to walk around and find solutions. And by the way, the vendors tend to hire some of the best and brightest from our profession. And we want to keep those people engaged and involved in talking to all the attendees. But probably the greatest thing that occurs in that room, I believe we have 2 receptions every year at the annual meeting, is that the networking that goes on. People meet each other, share each other's challenges. It's a stressful job, and one of the most important things we do is help people connect with each other, because when they do, they realize they're not alone in the challenges that they face. Some of the keynotes we have is Judge Patty Saris from the Sentencing Commission, Steve Cohen from the SEC, Nell Minow, who's a governance expert, Michael Josephson, an ethics expert, Michael Horowitz, who has one of the most challenging compliance jobs in the world, in my opinion, who's the Inspector General of the Department of Justice. He also is heading up a panel of some other very interesting inspectors general. And also we have a fellow named Peter Shankman, who we added a little bit late in the program. Peter Shankman wrote a book, is Nice Companies Finish First. And he's going to be interviewed by our very own Adam Turtletaub and talk a little bit about this concept of extension of compliance, that if you create a positive culture, an ethical culture, a compliant culture, and you take that a step further to trying to be the kind of company that customers and partners want to work with, that you're going to be successful. He's a very, very interesting character, and so that will be interesting. And we're going to give everybody a copy of his book, and he's going to sign copies for whoever wants their copy signed. There's so much to talk about here. Just a couple other things. One is we have 100 sessions. One of the things about keeping the price right and doing a lot of, as anybody who's ever been on our list knows, we do a lot of marketing. It's important, because the more people we can get there, the more breakouts we can have. The more breakouts we can have, the more we can hit specific areas that people who have very subspecialty interests can get those addressed by one of the speakers. 100 sessions, 130 speakers. We have tracks focused on risk, ethics. We have a whole track of people just doing case studies, which people love. We have a international, multinational track, as these organizations that have operations overseas are some of the most challenged folks in compliance. And hot topics, general topics. One of the things I want to emphasize is we have a track on advanced discussion groups. This is where we limit it to 50 people. We give them all one of these little keypads that they can answer questions anonymously on, and there'll be a topic and a facilitator, but not a presentation. And the facilitator will have some questions, and they'll engage the group in discussion. Compliance is really not that complicated a concept. It's auditing, monitoring, investigations, hotline, reporting to the board, education, things that we've had around for a long time. What's complicated is the integration of all of them and making sure that the problem is finished and fixed, and dealing with leadership and some challenging situations. The challenge to this job, the advanced part of this job, is subtle issues related with negotiation, collaboration, influencing, compromise. And these advanced discussion groups allow people to kind of get a step further beyond the basics and talk about very specific challenges they face. And so that's pretty exciting. And the last two things I'll mention is we have what we call speed networking and speed mentoring. And we basically, it wasn't our idea, it was the vendor's idea, but these folks who have done speed dating thought maybe that there would be it would be a good idea to go to conferences and use their software to connect people for other purposes. And so 70 or so people typically register for this. They'll fill out a little form about the type of people they want to meet and their type of background, and they'll be paired up, and they meet 4 or 5 people for 15 minutes each. And a lot of these people that they meet, because they were matched up relative to their interests, stay connected for quite a while. And so the speed networking works pretty good. It's particularly helpful for people who are first-time attendees, so they can start the conference. We do it in the beginning. They can start the conference by meeting some people. And the speed mentoring is really important. And I won't bore you with all the details, but all of the mentoring programs I've ever seen tried in most settings don't work. And the problem is that people get paired up in rather a random way. And frankly, we might not hit it off personality-wise, or we might not hit it off, the fit isn't right. In this case, again, they fill out a form, they answer some questions, they talk about their interests, what kind of person they are, what do they do for a living, what is the person that they want to meet. And they meet 4, 5, 6 people, 15 to 20 minutes each, and they have a chance at the end of that to say, you know what, 3 of these folks I just couldn't relate to, a couple of them maybe I did, and the chances for the mentor-mentee engagement to continue has increased dramatically. So we're very excited about that. We try to do as much as we can to stay focused on the mission of this meeting and the organization, and that is essentially educating and networking the profession.
So, if somebody wants to get more information about the conference or they want to register, where would they go, Roy?
I would search on the term Compliance Ethics Institute. It's also available at our, you can get at it from our corporatecompliance.org website. But we have a website dedicated to the annual meeting that gives a lot of these details I'm sharing here. And that's where they could search on corporate, Compliance and Ethics Institute.
Okay, well, look, I really appreciate this. It's been great to visit with you, and thanks very much. So,
Appreciate talking